Hey girlies, it's Danny the Teach and this is Beauty Manifested. I am tired today. Not even just like physically tired. I'm actually not physically tired at all. I had a cup of coffee. So I'm wired. But I'm like mentally tired, emotionally tired. Like I'm tired, okay? And I want to talk about, it's because I've been in a long negotiation all day. And it might go on all day longer. It might even go until tomorrow. The person I'm negotiating with claims that we have to come to a resolve today, but we'll see. So I want to talk about my top negotiating tips. First, the best negotiating book ever is Never Split the Difference. I think it's by like an FBI agent or something. Definitely give it a read. It's a great book. My top negotiating tips. Now this goes for business, this goes for love, this goes for life, okay? It's know what you want. My first experience in negotiating was with my parents, okay? I'm the kind of girl who wants to have what she wants and wants it her way. It's my way or the highway. And so as a dependent, I had to learn how to negotiate with my parents in order to get ideal outcomes. And the ideal outcome is to have it my way. I do not believe in meeting in the middle. Never split the difference. Get your way. They say always be willing to walk away from a negotiation. And yes, I do think that's important. You do have to be willing to walk away from the negotiation. But more importantly, before going into the negotiation, you need to know what you want. Know what you want. And just know, like, men, women, children, old people, anyone, we all actually find it quite difficult to ask for what we want. And so just know that the other person is just as nervous as you. They also probably had to rehearse their lines before they met with you. And the other person doesn't know more than you do. You think that they do, but they don't. That's the second tip. Always make sure that you get a lawyer to review everything that you guys are going to be talking about before you go in. And in that way, the other person cannot trick you into, and I'm using these terms loosely, like trick, but the other person can't pressure you into something by creating like a false sense of urgency. That is a negotiation tactics that a lot of people will use. They will create false senses of urgencies. They will give you two options and act as if those are your only two options when actually there's many options. All kinds of things that people will do. Don't fall for any of it. Don't listen to these people. They're scam artists, literally. Don't go for that. There's always, you can always get the option that you come up with in your head. There's never only two options. That's never a thing. That's never a thing, okay? And you do not have to negotiate hard to negotiate well. All you have to do is know what you want and stand on that. We are not looking to compromise. We are not looking to meet in the middle. I'm negotiating with someone now. He just told me, I can't just bend over backwards. You have to compromise a little bit. No, I don't. I don't have to compromise a little bit at all, actually. I don't. This is what I'm looking for, this contract to accomplish. Point blank, period. That's it. If we can't come to favorable conditions for both parties, then I would prefer to just not have a contract in place at all. And that's it. And they'll say, okay, well, it's either this or this. It's never either this or this. You have unlimited options that you can choose from. Do not let anyone take your options away. Do not let anyone take your power away. There is no rush. Take your time. Do not fall for the false sense of urgency. And most importantly, know what you want. Know what you want. If you do not know what you want, what did Eminem say? If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. If you do not have a plan for your life, then someone else will include you in theirs. If you do not know what you want out of the negotiation, you will end up compromising on someone else's. If someone else writes the contract, that contract was written to cover their ass, not cover yours. You need to ensure that you get what you want and what you believe is to be in your best interest. Period. There is no compromise. You know what you want, and that must be included in the contract. That's it. That's it. And if you knew what you wanted before the meeting, and then somehow the person convinces you to change your mind within that meeting, Do not sign anything that day. Say, okay, now that we have negotiated new terms, I will need time to review this with my lawyer, and I will have to sleep on this for at least one day. Okay? Don't let someone pressure you into a situation that you haven't had time to think about. Okay? If you've negotiated new terms, then the new sitting period has to begin again. So say he gave you the contract a few days ago, you guys reviewed it, you had some things you wanted to change, and then you guys came back, and then he kind of negotiated you into a compromise. And I don't even like compromise. He negotiated you into a compromise. Now that you guys have changed the terms of the agreement, you will need to think about it again. So if he gave you 3 days before, he needs to give you 3 days again. And I know that lawyer fees are expensive, so you may not be able to like keep on taking this back to your lawyer. If you have your lawyer under retainer, then maybe you can do that. But the way that I have my lawyer set up is I can't just keep going back and back and back unless I pay more and more and more and more. And so I have to get an understanding when I'm with that lawyer, ask a lot of questions to understand like what's in my best interest, what I want, what I need, what the person's asking me for, what this means, what that means before I even go in. And then that way I have a good understanding. Okay, I love you guys. I'll be back later. I'm about to go to lunch. Peace. Okay, so part 1, we talked about knowing what you want. You have to know what you want before you go into any negotiation and stick to that. And then you also have to give yourself time to really sit on it so that you're not making a decision and then waking up in the morning and having buyer's remorse. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 2 is like tactics that they use. And I did talk a little bit about this in the beginning, but guilt is a big one. In the first part, I think I talked about urgency. Urgency is one that people always use. They always try to tell you, you have to do it right now, you have to do it right now, you have to do it right now. And they also use absolutes like I just did, like you always have to do this and you always have to do that. And it's never that. And then another one that they use is presenting 2 options as if those are the only options. Like, okay, you can do this or this. And then they force you into, and both of those are favorable options for them. And then they get you to choose one of those 2 options. Those are things that they do. And then another one is guilt. And this was actually a little bit in Never Split the Difference. So if you ask the person questions that makes them start to negotiate with themselves in their own moral compass, and you start to have them question themselves like, oh, am I being fair? Am I being fair? This is what you need to know. Rule number 2, you don't have to be fair. I don't know who told y'all that. You do not have to be fair. Right is a direction. It's not a moral compass. Okay. You don't have to be fair. You have to get what you want. You get to have what you want. And that is what it takes to go into a negotiation. And that's why they call shrewd businessmen, like, you know, if someone's a shrewd negotiator. That shrewd negotiator can be a perfectly wonderful human being, someone who you consider a friend, someone who you love. But when it's time to negotiate, the negotiation hat goes on and all is fair in love and war. And this is now a war. Period. I don't have to be fair. I don't want to be fair. You don't have to like me. And as a human being, and especially as a woman who's negotiating, you have to get past that. You have to. We all want to be well liked. It does not feel good if someone's mad at us, if someone doesn't like us, things like that. And people use that as a tactic. They make it seem like they're angry with you. I've had people make it seem like if I don't agree to the thing, then there will be negative repercussions. Like it's gonna, well, if you don't agree to this, then I'm gonna have to do this, or you're not gonna like it, you're not gonna like me if you don't agree to this, blah blah blah, stuff like that. Trying to like basically scare you as to like make you feel like the other alternative, even if this contract isn't favorable, the alternative is worse. Don't go for that. It's a trick. It's a trick. The only thing on your mind at this point should be winning the negotiation. That's it. Because that, I feel like that is how good negotiators look at it. They look at it as a game, like you either win or you lose. And times when I used to get really screwed over in deals is when I was trying to be fair and I was trying to do the right thing. There is no right thing in business. There is only what you want and what works best for you. And you should always be negotiating for the most favorable outcome for you. And so consider, what is the most favorable outcome? What is the best case scenario for me? And then if you are wanting to, and you don't have to, you can then say, okay, where am I willing to give a little? Like, if I can't have my perfect outcome, then where would I be willing to settle? And then wherever you would be willing to settle, then you have, like, you know, a little bit of leeway in negotiation. I personally feel like you should draw out your most favorable outcome and then stick to that. Especially if you know that you have the upper hand in the negotiation, as in the other person needs it more. So it depends. Like, it really depends on what you're negotiating on. If you're negotiating in like a partnership or something like that, it depends. Like, if you're hiring someone, I would say 100% of the time, go with the 100% most favorable option for you. If you're negotiating something like a partnership, maybe you can do like 90% to 80%. Like, you can give a little bit and go on a little bit of faith and expect that person to hold their word, because it is a partnership. It's like a marriage, and you should have a little bit of faith in this person that you're going into. And this is all my opinion now, just so you know. I'm ranting, like, this is my opinion. But in a partnership, like, you should have a little bit of faith on the person. That person's gonna hold their word, that person's gonna do what they're saying they're gonna do, and as such. But the whole point of a contract is to cover your ass, and so you should really ensure that your ass is covered. Like, any possible thing that could go wrong should be detailed in the contract. If anything in there that you read doesn't sound exactly right to you, then have them elaborate and expand on it in the contract, so that the scenario is exactly written out, and there's no way that it would turn into he say, she say. There's no way that you could be confused about the verbiage. Like, more is always better. If something is a little bit confusing to you, expand upon it. Expand, I don't know how they say that. Anyways, don't be guilted. Know what you want. Be willing to negotiate for years. In the book I read, The Millionaire Next Door, they talked about like savvy car buyers, like people who haggle for the best car prices. I can't think of the right like terms for that, but sometimes they'll be shopping for a car for 6 or 7 months. Like, they're just willing to wait. And now, especially in that situation, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'll be right back.